Tonight's top story, Bonnie weakening over the Pacific, but it still remains strong. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 7th. Across the world right now, Bonnie is still the strongest storm and refusing to die just yet, although it will be starting to weaken more significantly soon. Chaba, the remnants of which are still not dying off either, and Eri also fighting now a subtropical storm. But in the Atlantic, no areas of interest on day 37 of hurricane season, and so we are left with another blank canvas. And who knows what we'll see next, although I'm not betting on it being anytime soon for significant activity. Eastern Pacific hosts Bonnie and a 60% area of interest that we've marked. National Hurricane Center have gone higher, but interestingly the latest GFS model has dropped the system. Day 54 of hurricane season there, and that's how it looks. In the Western Pacific, subtropical storm Eri off the coast of Japan could still threaten the northern part of Honshu as it heads northwards, and the remnants of Chaba could still deliver significant amounts of rain to northern China and North Korea. And in the Indian Ocean, we have nothing currently active and nothing expected in the next 5 days. And that can also be said for everywhere else in the world on this July 7th. So the main feature is Hurricane Bonnie, still a Category 2 from the National Hurricane Center, with winds of 105 miles per hour. I think they still had it at 972 millibars, although latest images are showing that the eye looks like it may have collapsed by this point, and dry air may be starting to really get to the storm, which we'll witness again shortly on the Eastern Pacific wide shot on that infrared, but not looking so good, particularly in the last couple of hours. Looking at the wider picture then, this is the Atlantic right now, and you can see a fairly quiet picture there. Areas of moisture and areas of dryness, but in general it's a quiet scene. Unfortunately I can't see it with you because the software is playing up and it's showing me the old imagery from July the 2nd, which isn't very helpful at all. In the Eastern Pacific though, you can see those two areas, Bonnie of course, and that wave that's moving through next, and that's going to be something to watch. It's clearly there, so it's definitely got a chance, even if some models have weirdly dropped it. In the Western Pacific, you can just about make out the northern part of that image, showing the two X-cyclones and what might be waiting in the wings coming up soon, a few waves moving across, and we're still looking and waiting to see what will happen out of that one wave that would be moving through the Mariana Islands that the GFS had intensifying substantially in earlier model runs. This is what the Indian Ocean looks like at this point as well. Of course, as you'd expect, looking fairly quiet. And one that I can comment on properly, the Australian region, which shows a very quiet picture today actually, just a few equatorial showers and a big frontal system about to plough through New Zealand. But Australia looking pretty calm across the board over there. Well then, sea surface temperatures always changing, always warming up at this time of year, and they are. Eastern Pacific getting nice and warm around the coastal regions in particular. Gulf of Mexico very warm, pushing 30 degrees and more in the Gulf and in the Western Caribbean Sea. The Atlantic is really warming up further north as well in the Sargasso Sea and the Loop Current. The Gulf Stream looking very good with 26 degree isotherms out at the same longitude and latitude as the northeastern part of the US and Newfoundland. Indian Ocean very warm as you'd expect, much cooler in the Arabian Sea due to the winds from the west. The China Sea there, the South China Sea, a little bit cooler. Chunk's been taken out of it thanks to Chaba And same too for the area where area has been tracking as well. You can see around Okinawa and the Amami Islands temperatures have slipped a little bit. But in the Philippine Sea and the Western Pacific's main development region, things still looking piping hot. Sea surface temperature anomalies, very warm in the subtropical regions of the Pacific and the Atlantic in the west, but more towards average in the tropical zones, particularly in the Pacific. Atlantic overdoing it a little bit as well. Gulf of Mexico above average. Watch that one for later on in the season. And here is the oceanic heat content and that enormous blob of very energetic and warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico and the Loop Current, and the Western Caribbean looking very good as well. Eastern Pacific still remains extremely dead, although signs of life along the coastal regions of Mexico, and the Western Pacific looking decent as you would expect. That's where the powerhouse of the world is for tropical cyclone development. So the computer models, the first one we're looking at here is the Atlantic, would you believe? Because just towards the end of that 5-day period, you're wondering just what might happen. Well, out of that massive extratropical cyclone and frontal systems that move on behind it, we get what might look like a tropical cyclone near the end of that 5-day period. Too early to call really at this point, but I would keep your eyes on that for a potential spin up. A lot off the US East Coast. And the next one takes a look at Bonnie and its future, and you can see it tracks across a large part of the Eastern Pacific before really dying off and holding on to tropical storm force winds as long as it can. It does also make it to the Hawaiian Islands as a remnant. And as you can see, the GFS is really not fussed on that other wave, although other models such as the ECMWF particularly forming it into a substantial tropical cyclone or hurricane. Earlier GFS models did have it becoming a major hurricane as well, so I guess we'll just have to take it by day. And the Western Pacific looking like this. You can see Chaba's energy and Aries energy moving off towards the north. Area there affecting the eastern coast of Japan could turn back into a tropical cyclone even as it moves along the coast of Honshu, so we'll have to wait and see on that one, but it will probably remain subtropical, delivering tropical storm force winds and heavy rainfall to the area, and that potential next tropical cyclone forming in the Philippine Sea. And this is a look at the precipitation totals in that area as well. And you can see there northern China near the North Korea border, high amounts of rain still from Chaba, and then behind it towards the end of the 7-day period, another rain event comes in there delivering more rainfall to areas affected by Chaba, which could lead to potential flooding issues there in northeastern China. Look at those rain values, 7 inches from the remnants of Chaba directly and 10 inches from that system behind it in China. In Japan from Airi, we're looking at around 5 to 6 inches of rain there, and that's around 150 millimeters. China there 150 to 200 millimeters from Chaba's remnants. In the longer range, we're once again looking at the Atlantic there, and you can see that system ploughing through northeastwards. Gets near hurricane force winds. Whether it is even tropical or not is a question mark, but that's just something that we're looking at in that next this is now the 5 to 10 day period. Sweeping across the Atlantic. Nothing else in the basin though, so don't get your hopes up for anything like that, but it ends up shooting off northeastwards in a typical fashion towards Europe. And there's a look at the remnants of Bonnie, and once again, like I mentioned, moving through the Hawaiian Islands, barely traceable by that point. The next system, barely traceable here as well. Even if it does become a hurricane like other models are suggesting, it will most likely die off at a similar area to Bonnie eventually, and won't make it as far as the Hawaiian Islands. So Eastern Pacific looking fairly dead after that actually. And the Western Pacific, watching these potential cyclones. GFS has had this for a while. 2 large cyclones affecting Taiwan there, and another one forming in the South China Sea affecting Hainan and southern China. Both of them look rather weak, but fairly large. And of course this could change a lot. GFS of course has changed its mind on this from the previous forecast a couple of days ago, where it wanted a very strong typhoon. It can change just like that. At this point, that's the most important stuff done with, so you can check out our Force 13 store, scan the barcode, and that will take you straight to our store page where you can find out what we're selling, basically pillows and shirts and animations on request. No ultra long range because there is nothing on the long range right now, so no silly models today. And we're on this day for July 7th 1986, where we had Tropical Storm Derby, which was dying off in the Eastern Pacific, didn't even make it as far as Celia probably, maybe. And Peggy, which was a powerful Category 5 storm, was peaking on this day as it was making its approach towards the Philippine Islands. It eventually struck Luzon as, I think, still a powerful Category 4, if not stronger. One of those powerful 80s typhoon landfalls in Luzon, of which there were very many. So the next name in the Atlantic is Danielle, followed by Earl. In the Eastern Pacific, we are looking out for this year's iteration of Derby, and in the Central Pacific, we're still waiting for Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name now is Songda. In the North Indian Ocean, we're looking out for Sitrang, although it may not arrive for quite some time yet. 34 storms so far this year, just a reminder of the average 92 storms for the year, which means we've still got 2/3 of the year to go in terms of named storms. The Australian region, the next name is Darian. Southwest Indian Ocean kicks us off with Ashley, and in the South Pacific next up is Harley. That's all for tonight. We'll have another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.